Tonight, we're diving into the realm of horror with 3 chilling gas station tales that will send shivers down your spine. Get ready for a night of thrills and suspense as we explore the dark and disturbing encounters that await at the pump. Let's dive in. Late one stormy night, Jake found himself driving along a desolate highway, the rain pounding against his windshield with relentless force. With his fuel gauge teetering dangerously close to empty, panic began to set in. He realized he was stranded in the middle of nowhere, desperate to find a gas station. Before he was left stranded on the side of the road, Jake scoured the horizon for any signs of life. It was then that he spotted it, an old, dilapidated gas station looming in the distance, like a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. With a sense of relief flooding through him, Jake turned off the highway and followed the narrow road leading to the station, his headlights barely cutting through the thick fog that enveloped the area. As he pulled into the station, a chill ran down Jake's spine, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. The station was eerily silent, the only sound the distant rumble of thunder echoing through the night sky. Ignoring the nagging feeling of unease that gnawed at him, Jake stepped out of his car and approached the pump, his heart pounding in his chest. But as he began to fill his tank, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The station appeared to be abandoned, with no signs of life in sight. The windows were boarded up, the paint peeling from the walls, and an overwhelming sense of decay hung heavy in the air. Panic began to rise in Jake's chest as he realized the gravity of his situation. With each passing moment, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, a primal instinct warning him of the danger that lurked just beyond the edge of perception. Hastily, Jake finished filling his tank and hurried back to his car, his heart pounding in his ears. But as he turned the key in the ignition, he froze in horror. Surrounding him were a horde of shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. With a scream of terror, Jake slammed the car into gear and sped away into the night, the echoes of their haunting laughter following him into the darkness. As Jake's car raced down the deserted highway, his mind reeled with the horror of what he had just experienced at the abandoned gas station. The memory of the shadowy figures emerging from the darkness haunted him, their eerie laughter echoing in his ears like a macabre symphony. Desperate to put as much distance between himself and the gas station as possible, Jake pressed down on the accelerator, the engine roaring to life as he hurtled through the stormy night. But no matter how fast he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to him like a shroud. As he rounded a bend in the road, Jake's heart skipped a beat as he saw the gas station looming in the distance once more. It was impossible. He had driven for miles without passing a single landmark, yet somehow he had returned to the very place he had tried so desperately to escape. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Jake pulled into the station once more, his hands trembling as he brought the car to a stop. The station appeared unchanged from before, the darkness swallowing it whole, if it were a gateway to another realm. Summoning every ounce of courage he had left, Jake stepped out of his car and approached the pump, his heart pounding in his chest. But as he reached for the nozzle, he recoiled in horror. The pump was covered in dried blood, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked within the station's walls. With a sense of overwhelming dread washing over him, Jake turned to leave, only to find himself face to face with the shadowy figures once more. They surrounded him, their eyes burning with a malevolent light as they closed in on him from all sides. With nowhere left to run, Jake screamed in terror as the figures descended upon him, their laughter echoing through the night as they dragged him into the darkness. And as the storm raged on, the abandoned gas station stood silent and still, a monument to the horrors that lurked within its walls, waiting patiently for their next unsuspecting victim to arrive. On a desolate stretch of highway, Sarah found herself driving through the dead of night, her car sputtering as the fuel gauge dipped dangerously low. With each passing mile, the darkness seemed to close in around her, the only source of light coming from the dim glow of her headlights. As she rounded a bend in the road, Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She spotted a rundown gas station looming in the distance like a beacon of hope amidst the desolation. With a sense of relief flooding through her, she pulled into the station, the crunch of gravel beneath her tires echoing through the silent night. Stepping out of her car, Sarah surveyed her surroundings, a shiver running down her spine as she noticed the eerie stillness that hung heavy in the air. The station appeared deserted, its windows dark and its pumps empty, save for a lone figure sitting inside the small attendant's booth. Approaching the pump, Sarah's unease grew as she caught sight of the attendant, his eyes fixed on her with an unsettling intensity. His gaze seemed to pierce through her, sending a chill down her spine as she went about the task of refueling her car. But as she turned to leave, the attendant's voice cut through the silence like a knife, his words dripping with a sense of foreboding that sent shivers down her spine. He spoke of unspeakable horrors lurking in the shadows, of souls lost to the darkness that dwelled within the station's walls. Frozen in fear, Sarah watched in horror as the attendant's eyes began to glow with an otherworldly light, his features contorting into a grotesque mask of madness. With a scream of terror, she turned and fled from the gas station, the memory of the haunting encounter burning into her mind like a brand. As Sarah's car tore down the desolate highway, her heart pounded in her chest, the memory of her encounter with the gas station attendant burning like a brand in her mind. The image of his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light haunted her, the echo of his chilling words reverberating through her thoughts like a sinister refrain. Desperate to put as much distance between herself and the gas station as possible, Sarah pressed down on the accelerator, her foot heavy on the pedal as she hurtled through the darkness. But no matter how fast she drove, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her like a shadow. As she rounded a bend in the road, Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she saw the gas station looming in the distance once more. It was impossible. She had driven for miles without passing a single landmark, yet somehow she had returned to the very place she had tried so desperately to escape. With a sense of growing unease, Sarah pulled into the gas station once more, her hands trembling as she brought the car to a stop. The station appeared unchanged from before, the darkness swallowing it whole, if it were a portal to another realm. Summoning every ounce of courage she had left, Sarah stepped out of her car and approached the pump, her heart pounding in her chest. But as she reached for the nozzle, she recoiled in horror. The pump was covered in dried blood, a grim reminder of the horrors that lurked within the station's walls. With a sense of overwhelming dread washing over her, Sarah turned to leave, only to find herself face to face with the gas station attendant once more. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, his features contorted into a grotesque mask of madness as he advanced towards her. With nowhere left to run, Sarah screamed in terror as the attendant's hands closed down her throat, his laughter echoing through the night as he dragged her into the darkness. And as the storm raged on, the abandoned gas station stood silent and still, a monument to the horrors that lurked within its walls, waiting patiently for their next unsuspecting victim to arrive. As Matt's car pulled into the parking lot of the remote convenience store, a sense of foreboding settled over him, a heavy cloak. The dead of night shrouded the small building in darkness, its flickering neon sign casting eerie shadows across the deserted lot. Ignoring the nagging feeling of unease gnawing at him, Matt stepped out of his car and made his way towards the entrance. The store was dimly lit, the aisle stretching out before him, a labyrinth of shadows. Matt couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end as he browsed the shelves for snacks. Each creak of the floorboards seemed to echo through the empty store, amplifying the sense of isolation that hung heavy in the air. As he approached the checkout counter, Matt's heart skipped a beat as he saw the figure standing behind it, cloaked in darkness. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light that sent a shiver down his spine. Paralyzed with fear, Matt could only watch in horror as the figure spoke, its voice a guttural whisper that seemed to reverberate through his very soul. The figure spoke of ancient curses and blood rites, of souls trapped in eternal torment within the walls of the convenience store. Matt's mind reeled at the words, his rationality crumbling in the face of the supernatural terror that surrounded him. With a sense of urgency burning in his chest, Matt stumbled backwards and fled from the store, the memory of the haunting encounter burning into his mind like a brand. Vowing never to return to the convenience store that held secrets too dark to comprehend, he raced into the night, the echoes of the figure's chilling laughter following him into the darkness. As Matt sped away from the haunted convenience store, his heart pounded in his chest, the memory of the chilling encounter burning like a flame in his mind. The darkness seemed to press in around him, the road stretching out before him like a path to the unknown. Desperate to put as much distance between himself and the store as possible, Matt pressed down on the accelerator, his foot heavy on the pedal as he hurtled through the night. But no matter how fast he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to him like a shadow. As he rounded a bend in the road, Matt's heart sank as he saw the convenience store looming in the distance once more. It was impossible. He had driven for miles without passing a single landmark. Yet somehow, he had returned to the very place he had tried so desperately to escape. With a sense of growing unease, Matt pulled into the parking lot of the convenience store once more, his hands trembling as he brought the car to a stop. The store appeared unchanged from before, its flickering neon sign casting eerie shadows across the deserted lot. Summoning every ounce of courage he had left, Matt stepped out of his car and approached the entrance to the store, his heart pounding in his chest. But as he pushed open the door and stepped inside, he was met with a sight that sent a chill down his spine. The aisle stretched out before him like a maze of darkness, the shelves lined with products that seemed to leer at him from the shadows. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the only sound the faint whisper of voices that seemed to echo through the empty store. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Matt realized that he was not alone. Something lurked in the darkness, its presence palpable as it watched and waited with bated breath, paralyzed with fear. Matt stumbled backwards and fled from the store, the echoes of the haunting encounter burning into his mind like a brand. But as he raced into the night, he knew that the nightmare was far from over, and that the convenience store held secrets too dark to comprehend. As Matt's car tore down the desolate highway, his mind raced with the horror of what he had just experienced at the haunted convenience store. The memory of the chilling encounter lingered like a nightmare, the echoes of the sinister whispers reverberating through his thoughts. Desperate to escape the clutches of the supernatural terror that had ensnared him, Matt pressed down on the accelerator, his foot heavy on the pedal as he hurtled through the darkness. But no matter how fast he drove, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to him like a shadow. As he rounded a bend in the road, Matt's heart sank. He saw the convenience store looming in the distance once more. It was impossible. He had driven for what felt like an eternity, yet somehow, he had returned to the very place he had tried so desperately to escape. With a sense of resignation settling over him, Matt pulled into the parking lot of the convenience store once more, his hands trembling as he brought the car to a stop. The store stood silent and still, its flickering neon sign casting an eerie glow over the deserted lot. Summoning every ounce of courage he had left, Matt stepped out of his car and approached the entrance to the store, his heart pounding in his chest. With each step he took, The air grew colder, the darkness pressing in around him, a suffocating shroud. As he pushed open the door and stepped inside, Matt was met with a sight that sent a chill down his spine. The aisle stretched out before him, a labyrinth of shadows. The shelves lined with products that seemed to leer at him from the darkness. And there, at the end of the aisle, stood the figure he had encountered before, cloaked in darkness. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light as it watched him with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. With a surge of terror coursing through his veins, Matt turned and fled from the store, his footsteps echoing through the empty aisles as he raced towards the exit. But as he reached the door, he was met with a force that sent him sprawling to the ground. Paralyzed with fear, Matt looked up to see the figure looming over him, its features twisted into a grotesque mask of madness. With a voice that seemed to reverberate through his very soul, the figure spoke of ancient curses and blood rites, of souls trapped in eternal torment within the walls of the convenience store. And as the darkness closed in around him, Matt knew that he would never escape the nightmare that had consumed him, that the convenience store held secrets too dark to comprehend. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss out on our latest investigations into the world of horror.